Welcome to episode 308 of the Game Deflators podcast. My name is John, and I am joined by Ryan, along with Allie and Sarah of Astral Clocktower Studios. How's everybody doing?
Hey, everybody.
So this is going to be a special midweek release episode. We normally don't do these. They're kind of reserved for special guests as yourselves. So we're happy to have you guys on.
No, we're happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. So we can kick it off as normal. You can find the Game Deflators on thegamedeflators.com, our currently up-to-date website, Ryan. I'm going to say it in advance, even though it isn't as of right now today. You can also find us on our social media handles at Game Deflators on X, at The Game Deflators on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. We're also on YouTube. You can watch this interview on there. Ring the little bell so that way you know when we have a episode popping up. Subscribe, like, comment, all of that good stuff. We're also on podcast applications. If you're listening, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, all of that as well.
5-star reviews.
5-star reviews, lots of them. 2 5-star reviews if you can handle it. So, Allie and Sarah, thanks again for coming on. We're going to be talking about their upcoming game, Kristala. And actually, there's demos and other things on Steam and like early release access. So that's pretty cool. But console release will be at a later time. So that's what I've got. So I'm kind of pinning my calendar for that.
Yeah, tell us all about the studio, your guys' game, and give us an intro to you.
Sure. Yeah, we're Astral Clocktower Studios. We are developing a game called Kristala. It's a dark fantasy action RPG that we've been making in Unreal 5. We started back in 2018, so it was Unreal 4, then Unreal 5. About magical cat warriors called Onagativa, and also, what would I call them? Intelligent rodent beings, known as the Kotakaya. They're the 2 main races in the world of Ailur, which is in Kristala.
Okay.
Sarah here is my partner owner, and I'm the founding owner and producer. Oh, and Sarah's also our marketing director.
Woo! So when were y'all founded? Like when did y'all start the studio up?
We started it up in 2018. I was in school at the time working on a degree in game programming, and I was like working as a software programmer out in the world doing less exciting kind of programming work. While I was getting close to the end of my degree, and I felt like I really wanted to do something with like a team of people. I'd just done like a group project, and I made friends with, we have another person that is an owner with us at the studio named Tiffany, and we were working on a group project together. And when it was done, I really enjoyed working with her. So I was like, hey, you want to make something fun together? Just to make sure you want to go get good, And we started doing that. And around that same time, I met Sarah at the day job I had, and she was the head of marketing there. And we bonded over cats, of course. That's how we met. And at the same time, we were making this, but we had landed on a cat game. So just to do like for fun, it was supposed to be like a smaller kind of, we were going to do like an adventure side scroller kind of deal about a kitty getting their wings because of Tiffany's love for the anime fairy tale. But obviously that changed.
We like to say Kristala, just took on a life of its own, and
exactly
was like, nope, we're not doing. We're gonna be bigger.
Yeah, Kristala said, nope, bring me to life, please. So we did. It's actually kind of fun to talk about this now because just the other day we made a post where it was like I think it was our second. It was like our first attempt at the vertical slice. We had made a prototype before that was hilarious, and we actually brought it to a game convention, and then people loved it, so it was shockingly, and we continued, which is good. we really started fleshing out the world at that point. So I would say like true development past the prototyping stage took, I guess it was around 2019, 2020 is when we really got into the meat of it and got our first version of the vertical slice done.
How many people do you have like actively designing and developing on the back end?
Right now we have a team of about 40 people.
Nice.
So it's changed quite a bit since then.
Yeah, I would say.
A fun partnership, making like silly little cat game to like this now. So it's pretty cool, actually.
I
So
like too that. Sorry, but I like that. Like when we started, it was a volunteer team, right? And like
Yeah.
even to this day, six years later, like we still have some of those like original people that were volunteers on the team. It just is really cool to have like grown, together as a unit. So
Totally.
That is super cool.
yeah, definitely a different vibe for sure from start to current. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know Sekiro is a pretty big inspiration for the gameplay and such as well. What other types of inspirations did you pull from other games out in the world to develop this?
Sekiro was one for sure. I'm a huge fan of all of FromSoft's games, so we could just probably count all of them. But the biggest one, my very favorite, is Bloodborne. So that is why we're Astral Clocktower Studios, because one of my favorite boss fights in any game ever, as long as you don't cheese her too bad, is Lady Maria of the Astral Clocktower. So that's where we got our name from. But and also kind of like our desire for a faster paced kind of combat. But obviously, when you go back and play games like Kristala and then go back to Bloodborne feels really slow because Kristala is more like, I would say it's more like like Sekiro or like Neo. Neo was a really big inspo to us too, because of like the really fast and agile movement of the characters in Neo. No matter what weapon you're playing with, you move quickly. And you definitely move slower with a great sword, for example. But the combat itself is always more fast paced than any of the other Souls-likes I've played. So there's that. There was also some inspo from Assassin's Creed for the verticality and stealth and secret, assassinations from above and stuff like that.
Yeah, the wire crossings and all that good stuff.
Exactly. And then also Jedi Fallen Order has a really awesome like parkour system in it. And that was a really, if we're making a game about humanoid cats, they have to be as agile as possible, right? So that was a really good inspo for us too.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny you bring up Neo. I haven't finished that one yet. For whatever reason, I stopped playing that. One of the biggest issues I had is like the multitude of items that you continually got in every. I was like, oh man, so many. And then I just beat Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and it's like the exact same concept. I think it's the same team actually that did Neo.
It is, I think. I think
Yeah.
I think they're related. I don't remember if they are or not now, but it's very similar. And I also have a problem with games with inventory systems like that because at first it's fun, and then it becomes outrageously tedious and annoying. And like you're constantly searching for, like, you get so much crap. And everyone loves pickups, but like there's a certain point where I'd rather my pickups mattered, and I'd have to them for hours afterwards. Like Diablo.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things with Borderlands. It kind of I don't like the looter shooter concept where there's just so many items. But yeah, Wolong was very much like that. To your point, you're just kind of going through. It's like, why am I getting a 1-star sword at like the last 80th% of a game? Like that makes zero sense to me, right? Like it should be progressing, getting better weapons at that point in time versus like unnecessary drops.
Going through it all to toss it and go, like, they should just at a certain point make it so you don't even bother. Like they don't drop crap like that anymore, or it just at least becomes like when it is a drop, it's worthwhile.
It sounds like Kristala won't have that problem then.
No, definitely. Pickups are mostly unique. We don't have like a random loot system.
Okay.
You get a pickup. It's supposed to be there. It's set there on purpose.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's how it should be.
Agree.
So I know Kristala is a lot bigger than you guys kind of were, thinking originally. You said earlier, it kind of told you what it wanted to be and told you to bring it into existence. So like, what aspects of the game are you most excited to see gamers experience when they're playing it?
I would say there's a couple of things. Number one is just that we added this character creation system. And I think people are just going to be most excited to make their own cats.
Yeah, making cats. That's where it's at.
Yeah, there's that. But in terms of the gameplay, I would say it's like how exciting and satisfying it is to issue like a critical hit or a death blow. We made sure that was really fun. And I love when I watch like streamers play for the first time and they have no idea what they're coming into, and then that happens to them and they're always like, whoa. And
I was not expecting the cat development part at the very beginning, so I booted up the demo like last week and I was playing around with it, and then just to be able to customize my own cat at that point was actually kind of fun.
Yeah, it's going to get more in depth than it is now. We're definitely going to give more options. But at least I think right now you can create most cats. There's a few missing, but yeah.
Can you pet cats? That's an important question I want to know.
You pet all the other cats in the world.
That would be a
Or
pretty.
can you be
world.
pet by someone?
As you're going through the town center, and people come up. That could be a cool. That's actually a good question because like we haven't established fully the whole NPC system yet. But wouldn't it be funny if every time you met or you became like close to somebody when you went to see them, you would rub their head?
Yeah.
You could even have like
You did
them
a good
try
job.
to piss or something. Like
Yeah.
if they're like, nah, you can't. Like you're not gonna pet me.
Yeah,
And we talked about this from a marketing standpoint because there's
Yeah.
those accounts on Twitter that are like, can you pet the dog or can you pet the
Mhm.
cat?
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it'd be cool. It'll be included in that. But like, even if petting others doesn't make sense in Kristala, it could still be like, yeah, you get hissed at or someone like swipes at you. You try to,
Here's me.
try to pet them.
You are.
Yeah.
That there is. I do have an idea in mind for a character that'll have a small. I don't want to give away too much because it's supposed to be something fun to find later. But a character that has their own small animal that you will be able to pet.
Aw. Okay, there we go.
There you
As
go.
long as something's getting pet.
Got to
Plus
add companions.
Feed and familiar system that we promised during our Kickstarter. So we'll definitely make sure that I want there to be like some cute interactions with your dog steeds. I mean, that would be a hugely missed opportunity without that. And with your familiars, they're out there helping you all the time. I actually kind of love that in video games. Like I would intentionally stop in Fallout 4 just to like pet dog meat for no good reason, just because I love dog meat. Like now, don't take that out of context.
That's gonna be the audio clip to promote the episode.
Great. Dog meat.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was playing Stray sometime last year, and just like even the small little interactions of being able to like knock over pots and
Right.
stuff with your cat was just hilarious, right? So like those little tiny interactions throughout those Easter eggs, in a sense, especially when you're with this theme of cats, I think would be pretty cool.
Absolutely, agreed. I can't wait
So,
to that like polishing point where we can start adding in those things.
Mhm.
well, talking about polishing, what has been, in your opinion, through the development of a game, the greatest challenge that you all have had?
I would say over the years, it was just like figuring out how to be a proper dev team, right? You go from 3 people straight out of school, or 2 people straight out of school, and somebody we found to help us marketing, right? And then, and we had like a small volunteer team, and I honestly never expected us to go all that as far as we did. So when it did happen, and we kind of exploded and had big growth and funding and stuff, it took us a little bit to figure out how to properly manage ourselves, right? So it's not. We're at a really good place now, I would say, but I think every dev team is constantly recognizing their own strengths and weaknesses and trying to work on themselves, even if they've been together for 20 years. Sometimes you have to streamline your processes, but I think we've done pretty well with that, and now we work really well together.
Gotcha.
I think for a while too, we were trying to we were doing a lot of pitching, and we were trying to cater to maybe like what one single publisher said, like, oh, hey, maybe if you do this, then come back to us, kind of a thing. And I think at some point we just were like, screw that. What are we wanting to do,
Yeah.
regardless of what they think? So there was a little bit of that,
True.
pivoting at first, before we really we're like, okay, we're just heading this singular direction now.
Kind of like on the job learning in a sense too.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, every company
And
goes through its
start-
growing pains regardless, right? From startup to major studios and major organizations. So yeah, it makes
totally.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had a lot of. It seems like this is a really rich world with like a lot of details and stuff. Is this something that you had been developing for a long time, or how did like the storytelling and the world of Kristala and your cat-centric characters and everything kind of come together? Do you guys have like some kind of secret sauce or something?
It's actually funny you bring that up, because just the other day I saw, or it was yesterday, one of our posts from when we first started our social media accounts, when our Onagativa used to be called Persons. And they were, and it was really funny to look back on because basically we started out just with the basic idea that we wanted this game with these like kind of anthro felines. And when we first built out our prototype, Sarah and we went to a convention, like I said, and we enjoyed it, but people kept asking us more about the story. And we were kind of like, actually, we didn't think that over yet. Let's get back to you. So Sarah and I actually that weekend sat down and we started brainstorming together, and we came up with like the skeleton of what Kristala is, and it's honestly mostly still that today, like the base of the world and how everything was going to be constructed. I'm kind of glad about our foresight because I can't remember if when we decided on the clan, Sarah, if we decided it made sense for an episodic release, but I mean that was a good call. Good thing we did that. Yeah. But yeah, we. Sarah and I started it, and then we brought in a writer to help us flesh it out. And during that time, we also ended up with a linguist who was our writer at the same time for a while. So we created a language for the world of Ailur called Ailuran. It's just kind of naturally, like Sarah said, this world has kind of naturally built itself out in a way. It was always so easy to come up with our story elements. And towards the beginning, when we decided on the story, we also decided we wanted to make sure that this game, one of my biggest complaints about Souls-likes in general, like almost every single one I've played, is I still can't tell you what most of them are even about. I have no idea. Like the stories are just not easy to follow, and it bugs me. Like, because I wanted
It's all lore.
Yeah.
It's all lore. Yeah.
You have to go research and put it all together yourself. And I get that some people really dig that, but like you can do both.
With Wolong, Ryan, for I don't know, I've been playing it for a few weeks now and I just finally beat it, but he's like, oh, what's it about? I'm like, I got no idea.
Wolong, that was one of the ones I had the hardest time following because I was like, I can't get myself to care about this for some reason. I don't even want to read anything it dropped. I don't care. Like I don't know.
Bring on the next boss. Get it over with.
Yeah, pretty much.
Boss. I don't know why I'm fighting them or who I am, but it's
well. And I got the overall concept of what was happening, right? Like Black Taoist is, trying to corrupt the world of his elixir and all this other stuff. Like I got that concept, but then there's like these secondary characters that at one point they're teaming with you and then they're against you. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then you have access. You have this list of like 20 different characters you could bring in as people to play with you. And it's like all of them are grayed out, except like the 3 or 4 that are still with you at that point. I'm like, why even list them anymore? I'm like, why are they even available to me?
I forgot the thing in that game. I played it like when it first came out. I forgot my Steam Deck. It was like my Steam Deck game. It was really fun. I remember,
it's a fun game.
I don't remember at all what it was about at all.
It wasn't as challenging as I would have liked, to be honest.
Yeah. Actually, I will say the first boss in Wolong, I would say it was one of the most challenging bosses for me ever. I think I fought him like 150 times before I because I wasn't, and it was so stupid afterwards because I wasn't like doing what the game wanted me to do to fight him, and that's why I kept dying. You were supposed to just do what the game wanted you to do, because then I got the second boss and I was doing what the game wanted me to do on the first boss, and I beat it in one try, and then every boss after that was way too easy because that first one was so damn hard for me to figure out when really it wasn't supposed to be that hard.
That game, it's like what is it? Bookends. Like the first boss is difficult, the last boss is difficult. Other than that, everying in between is
everything
easy.
In between was pretty simple. Yeah.
So I'm hoping for a good challenge with Kristala.
Well, we wanted to make Kristala the kind of game that was exciting and good for vets of this genre, but also more welcoming to new people. So one thing I think a lot of these games have intentionally stayed away from, and I understand why. If you bring this up to the hardcore Souls fans, they all go, no, don't do that. But we added difficulty settings, but we didn't.
Go ahead.
It's a dynamic thing, so it was a way we found a happy medium with this, where like you have your base difficulty, which is a normal Souls-like kind of difficulty, but then we have a difficulty that basically adjusts for what's happening to you as you play. So if you're just like dying over and over again and having a really bad time, the game will make the enemies just a little bit easier. And you can set it up to and then when you're doing well, it'll up the difficulty back to where it's supposed to be. So that way people don't get perpetually stuck, but then also we're not like pissing off diehards too much.
And I imagine that's a setting that you could say, okay, I want to play with dynamic difficulty or I want to play with standard.
Yeah. It's not, you have to turn it on. And then we'll also later have like a higher difficulty for people who want it to be even harder. So
there you go.
And like challenge runs and things like 9 lives mode, or insta death mode and stuff like that. So there's gonna be a lot of cool stuff.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because we had an episode probably 3 or 4 weeks ago where we brought up exactly that topic on Souls games needing some sort of difficulty, potentially difficulty setting that is on there.
Yeah, right. They need some difficulty.
Yeah. I mean, I get it to a point, like you mentioned with the Wo Long thing, right? It's like 150 times. Like there's a point where people will get frustrated and just stop. And like, I honestly did just stop like that evening. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'll come back to this later. Same thing with Sekiro. I think that game I had to resort to cheesing bosses at some point. And both of those are very difficult games to begin with.
They are.
So to jump back into development here, can you describe your experience of Unreal Engine? Like Ryan and I mean, talk to us as no idea what's going on with Unreal Engine. We don't develop, we don't dabble in that in any shape or form. So we'd really like to kind of understand your experiences with that.
Yeah, you said you went from 4 to 5. So that must have been like a whole thing too.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I was taught on Unreal in school when I was working on my game programming degree. And I like Unreal personally. In fact, I was just talking to my mom about this earlier because my mom is also a software programmer and she's really good. And I was never anywhere near as good as her. Like, I don't know. She just understands code in a way my brain didn't link up with until I had like a visual aspect to it. And Unreal has that. They have these essentially you're coding with visual tools, which is awesome for me because it's like it finally makes sense. But like when I was just learning code in school, I don't even know how I got a degree because I was just good. And it's funny because at one point I was our lead programmer, but I'm great in Unreal, just not in like actually having to write code for boring things. That also doesn't help. When I'm bored, I can't do stuff right. So, but yeah, Unreal I found to be really welcoming for learning, and I would recommend it to any starting developer, especially one that feels iffy about coding because of the visual aspect within Unreal. So we started with Unreal 4. We've been through a few things because, I used to be like our lead programmer for a while. It's weird how my camera just keeps moving, but I'm on an iPad. Anyway, sorry. I was on what was I saying? I was our lead programmer for a while, and then I was replaced. And every programmer has their own way that they like to do things. But we're at the point now where we've got like a pretty good team handling most of that stuff. So I don't do it anymore, which is very nice. But I would say I was expecting our jump from Unreal 4 to Unreal 5 to be kind of catastrophic, or like intense and hard. But it actually wasn't that bad. It took us like 2 weeks, maybe less. It was like a day almost.
Wow.
Moved over. Everything was fine.
I think the biggest issue was just some of the plugins not being compatible, right? Yeah. Like you'd think there'd be more than that. But
we were such early adopters that there were just we had to wait for some stuff to catch up. So there was a period of time where our build just, didn't look great because we didn't have some of our plugins. Like for a while, we went without Fur because we were waiting for our Fur plugin to be available for Unreal 5. And people would ask us about it all the time. We're like, we swear we're doing Fur. Just give it a minute. We have to wait.
It will be Fur. We promise.
Are there going to be any furless characters in the world?
Yeah. There's
okay.
A whole clan.
All right.
Well, originally, before we added the character creator, the clans were like set in what they looked like. So there was a clan called the Sikomana, and they live out in the desert area of Ailur, and they are Sphinx cats, of course. I mean,
okay.
So, but yeah, you have a choice. You can just be a Sphinx cat of any clan when you start the game. It's one of the choices. Now we're gonna add more choices later of because Sphinx cats aren't all just peach. That's what we have in there right now. So we're going to add a bunch of different variations. Sometimes they're spotted, sometimes they're black. Like, they look, they're just like regular cats. They just don't have fur. But yeah, you can definitely be a bald cat.
I'm going to have to build a big, chunky, bald cat for the world, no armor, just roly-polying. It's going to be fun stuff.
Working with, developing the game and then having it in early access. You're getting lots of feedback and, trying to figure out, where are we going and how are we incorporating that, and how does that play into, development for you? How do you choose what to prioritize and what feedback to look at or what to maybe ignore?
Typically, if someone gives us feedback about something that we're already doing and they just don't know about it, because I think a lot of times people forget that the game is like in early access and currently in development. So they like complain about things like, hey, why isn't this finished? And it's like, hey, it's in development right now. So that's pretty much, it makes it easy to be like, figure out what makes sense. Now, if we often listen to feedback or take people's feedback and just, if it makes sense and we're like, oh yeah, we'll incorporate it if it makes sense and it doesn't totally throw development off, because, scope is a thing. But yeah, it just depends on how much sense it makes.
I think one of those things we're addressing right now is we just brought in a really talented like menu UI designer, and he's working on like revamping the whole thing, which we've heard that a couple times, hey, the UI could use some work or the menus feel clunky. So that's just a good example of one of the things that, hey, we hear you, we're working on it, and we got you. They look really cool. I'm excited for the new design.
Yeah, those menus are going to be awesome.
And obviously that's prioritized in your roadmap, of course, of releases coming out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, totally.
Are there any things that you guys hear all the time? Maybe you want to just say right now, like, hey, we're working on these couple of things. You could stop asking.
Optimization, I would say for sure. Like we are constantly working on optimization. In fact, our most recent push was like all about optimization. The last update we did. Of course, when you're actively developing a game, though, now we're about to make another big push, and a lot of changes have occurred. So we're again working on optimization. It's just the way it goes. So if you find you're not getting the best frame rate, well, either one, just wait for an update, because it'll be coming, because we're always thinking about optimization, because you guys are always thinking about optimization. And 2, check your specs. Just make sure you have the right specs. We get that a lot. Like, hey, this isn't working. It's like, let's see. I wish it would on that for sure. But
I thought it looked good on my PC. I actually threw it into, I think I threw it into 1440p. That's what I was playing in.
Nice. That's sweet.
Yeah, wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's pretty well. Right now, the current build is performing quite well. But yeah, optimization is definitely on our mind. And it's like, when the game is 100% finished, we'll make sure it runs as smoothly as we can possibly manage. We have a team dedicated to it.
I was happy to see I could use a PS5 control, so that was nice.
Nice, yeah. We're still working on getting the I don't know. I don't remember if we actually got them in now. The icons. Did you see the right icons when you played?
You know what? I honestly don't remember, because whenever I see the Xbox buttons, I just kind of memory-wise, I know where it's at. Yeah, so it's like, okay, be a circle. So yeah, no, I didn't even pay attention to that. I don't think it did, though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that would make sense. I feel like I talked to my programmer about this, and he said there was something built into Steam, but that might be why the controller works as is. I don't know if it, but we would have to actually program out the buttons.
Yeah, it was interesting, because I usually would use like, well, I've never had it come up like this. So with other games I played on Steam, like it automatically says, yeah, PS5 controller, I'll plug it in and I'm good to go, right? This was interesting because it like booted up a whole like Steam PS5 controller menu of some sort, and then it booted up the game. Yeah, it was really interesting. And then it had like the adaptive feedback and things like that I could actually, depending on the game, if it was accessible, had access to that. So obviously I don't have an Xbox, so I had no way of using this. It's like, man, I don't want to have to use a keyboard here. Like, will the PS5 control work? And it happened to work. So that was nice.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So
out a controller. That would be no. I mean, you can. The controls are there. I just
it's so I don't know. Well, you know what? I can't say anything. There's people play with Guitar Hero controllers and like dance pads on this game, so
right.
I should be able to play with a keyboard. So for anybody that's listening to us right now, is there any advice you would give them on game creation? You said that you went to school for game design. Like, what are some bits of advice that you'd provide somebody that might be looking to get into this world?
Number one would be, you can teach yourself. You don't necessarily need to. I don't feel like I learned anything at school that I couldn't have taught myself. As much as my degree was helpful for, I would say, making connections, and like it definitely was a good thing to do. And if you want to do it, I would never tell someone not to. But if you're in the position where you feel like that's not an option, you can teach yourself, and it's totally viable. There's tons of options out there for learning yourself. And then I would say, for most people, I feel like they forget that indie is an option. You should start with indie. Honestly, you could start right away. If you're trying to learn, you can find a smaller indie team and work with other people right away. I used, when I was doing this, Reddit. There's like r/INAT, I need a team. And you can find people who are looking to work together in some capacity. Sometimes, you can join an already existing team, or you can create your own, and ask people to join you for an idea you have. And you'd be surprised at how many people out there think the same way you are. So, I mean, there's always a way to learn and grow with it. So, I mean, and you don't even necessarily have to spend money on it. YouTube is loaded with good game dev learning content. I can't even tell you how much I've learned from YouTube. So, but also like things like there's like, tutorial websites. I can't remember the names right now because I'm on the spot, but you can get all sorts of good stuff there too. And further, there's resources everywhere. There's tons of free resources to work with. So one of the things I always felt was kind of a roadblock when I was first learning was my, understanding of how I would get assets, or like, how would I even put anything together in there? Like, how do I get stuff? But yeah, the marketplaces for most engines, or, at least Unreal and Unity, are loaded with good, free crap you can use just to learn. So there's tons of options out there.
And there's even like smaller types of engines that obviously work with like, pixel based type of designs and things too. So you don't necessarily even need to go into like Unreal. You can, in Unity, you can go into, and I know there's a number of free programs out there that you can develop in, right?
Maker is a good one. Yeah.
RPG yeah, actually.
Maker. Yeah. Also Godot, if you know C++, and it looks like a pretty cool engine. I've been meaning to look into that. There's a bunch of options. You don't necessarily have to stick with those two, and I think RPG Maker probably has assets, but I would say that's probably the best place to start for somebody who's just learning, is go make yourself like a pixel art kind of simplistic game to start with. That's what I did. I made a cat on a pogo stick.
Is it like the dinosaur on Google where you can jump over stuff?
Yeah, that's basically what he did. Yeah.
Oh.
It's a good start.
That should be your loading screens.
Cat on a pogo stick.
So Cat's got you into games, and now Cats are, what you have going on with Kristala here. So for, this is a huge project. Obviously, you guys are still in early access, looking forward to the eventual release of this. But like having, a studio now with a bunch of people, like, are you thinking about like the future and potentially what's next, or is that still too far out to even really look at this point?
Oh, absolutely. We're always thinking about what's next. We're always thinking about the next three things. We definitely would, we're hoping Kristala does well and we can continue the story, because there's a lot of world lore that we came up with that, could result in at least 2 more games. We also have some ideas for totally different unrelated stuff that are in the works right now that I'm not going to talk about yet, but they'll be out there eventually. But yeah, we just hope we're able to keep making games. That's really let's do it.
Yeah, I'm happy you all did a physical release for this too, for this game. I think when I first saw it wasn't physical, right? And then you teamed up with Premium Edition to do a physical release.
Yes.
Yeah, we always planned to. It was just, you got to make the...
Yeah, you got to find a team.
For the other consoles as well. And we intend to, for sure.
Nice. So now on to the icebreaker questions that we would normally have at the front of the podcast, but figured it'd be a nice way to kind of defrost the full episode, right? What is your favorite video game console? So for both of you. And what is a must-own game on that console?
So like of all time ever, including...
Of all time ever. Favorite. I like how the camera like pans with you.
Right. Very dynamic.
I didn't know. But that's why I was like, I thought at first maybe it was like the way I had it sitting, but I think my camera's doing it.
Yeah.
when I was basically from childhood through my early 20s, the only game console I really played on was the Super Nintendo. I was obsessed with it. My favorite game is probably the Lost Levels, Mario the Lost Levels.
We're twinsies.
Yeah, love that. But yeah, so but I would say in terms of modern consoles, right? I feel like the PS4 was pretty epic, and my favorite game is Bloodborne. So there you go.
Very nice.
I usually game on Steam, so older consoles are definitely, in the mix for me. Also, Super Nintendo, all three of the Donkey Kongs, or N64. I'll go Yoshi's Island. I love, or Yoshi's Story, not Island. Island was on the Super Nintendo as well. Big Yoshi and Donkey Kong is my jam.
I think we're all best friends now. Yeah, Donkey Kong is my favorite franchise throughout. Lost Levels, my favorite Mario. Super Nintendo,
Nice.
favorite console. Yeah,
So good.
we'll have to bring in the podcast more.
The Lost Levels
Yes,
is
please.
probably why I'm such a Souls-like fan, because I died and died and died and died trying to get through that game the first time, which actually
Just a glutton for
funny.
punishment.
That sounds like
Yeah, do you know there's like a like internal hack in that game where you can you just hit a block just right and it gives you like 100 lives? I
No.
forget what it is. You got to hit it's the weirdest thing. I got to look it up again. But basically, you take a shell and you throw it into like the first level. There's kind of like that alcove type hanging with I want to say there's a Koopa in there,
Mhm.
and you throw a shell up there, and then you just hit this block just right. And apparently, you just continually hit it, and lives come out, and
Oh,
it just
wow.
sets you up for like the rest of the game.
That's amazing. I had no
Yeah.
idea. That would have been nice.
It would have been nice to know after I beat it too. Yeah.
That's like the berry code on the Lion King, which is so hard. I don't think I could ever. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was like you type berry on the Super Nintendo controller and you could pick any of the levels in the Lion King game.
Oh,
You
No, I
for,
didn't
I know that one's super hard though.
Yeah, right. I would always skip some of the hard ones because I was like, I just want to see what's next. I want to be Big
Yeah.
Simba.
Yeah, once my son gets into gaming, we'll do the Mario 3 gray block where you sink down, go get the flutes and everything.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh
Yes.
yeah.
yeah.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna
it's all
mention that.
stuff.
That was like my favorite thing when I was a kid.
Mhm. I
Love
beat the game. I'm already at level 8. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's so funny they let you do that and like so early on and easily.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of scary. And of course, it's one of those things that before the internet, of course, you had like a cousin who learned on
Yeah.
the playground who then told you, and you just kind of picked it up and went with
It's
it.
kind
So
of creepy. We all knew about that. Like
Mhm.
how? It's so
I don't
funny.
know. Well, they used to have that like
Oh,
Nintendo
out.
hotline that you could call for
Oh,
like cheats and tips, right? So
Yeah.
some kid out there probably paid good money to talk to a Nintendo person who's like, "Oh yeah, there's a cheat code where you just do
Oh
this
my
in a game,"
God.
and
You're
then
right.
spread around playgrounds in America and Japan forever.
That's funny.
So, besides Kristala or anything else you guys might make or have made, like if you had one game that you had to spend the rest of your life with, what game would that be?
You know what? I would say Elden Ring because there's just so much content. I'd never get bored.
For me, definitely the Ori games. I'd probably pick Blind Forest over Will o' the Wisp just because I fell in love with it with Blind Forest, but I do like the mechanics a bit better in Will o' the Wisp. But they're perfect games for me. Love.
Good
Those
choice.
games are so beautiful too.
Oh,
Yeah,
everything
I love
about it,
those.
the story, the music, the art style, it does it all for me.
I started incorporating some of the music from Ori into our D&D campaigns for background music for ambience.
No way.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah.
It is nice. It's very like that ethereal kind of
Mhm.
whimsical female voice. I love.
That and Kina Bridge of Spirits is a good soundtrack as well.
I've been playing that one actually. Well, I
Yeah.
say that, but it's been like weeks at this point. But I very much enjoy. I think I got stuck on some boss. Shovel Knight, or is that in Tunic? I'm getting them confused now. But
I don't
anyway,
know, I beat
got
Tunic
stuck on
recently as well.
that one's hard for me. But I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't usually play like Souls like type games at all. But I just love it. It's very much fun.
Ooh, I'm so proud of you. That's great.
It's kind of funny. You don't play Souls like games, but you're working on one.
Well, I mean, we got
Yeah,
Allie.
yeah.
She's our.
Yeah.
Like, I got it
Souls
covered.
gamer.
Don't worry. Fine.
You got it
She's
covered.
got enough punishment for both of you here.
I do love to watch her play, though. I'll tell you what, to not want to throw the controller at the wall. Like, I love watching you play because I'm like, you got patience, dude.
I do. I remember that time you came to my house and I was playing the Neo 2 demo and I died to that cat boss like probably times. It's ridiculous. You're like, so I'm gonna go.
No. That was a cool boss, though. I remember being like, I kind of want to play this because of that.
So you just sat there watching her lose this boss constantly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. But it was always entertaining. I don't know. If it were me, I would have quit, 50 times.
Nice.
So I remember it probably. Yeah. And it's definitely not the only one. She's, she comes to, we hang out in person sometimes. We used to live closer to each other than we do now, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Well, before we end the episode, can you let all of our listeners know where they can find you on social, where they can find Kristala, and anything else important about the game?
Yes, so you can purchase Kristala in early access right now on Steam. And we were talking earlier about things in reviews that we want to get out there and make it known. I just wanted to make it known that although we're releasing Kristala in chapters, you pay one single time for all of the content. So you do not have to pay per episode. Folks have been confused on that. And we have the second chapter coming this month. Later this month, there's going to be some really cool Kristalloween stuff happening there. So stay tuned to all of our socials. You can find us at ACS Games on pretty much everything except TikTok is our outlier at Kristala Game. And definitely hop in the Discord community if you want behind the scenes announcements before anywhere else.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate it. Well, this has been episode 308 of the Game Deflators podcast. My name's John, joined by Ryan. Yep, he is Ryan. There's always a delay here. We've been joined by Allie and Sarah of Astral Clocktower Studios talking about Kristala. We appreciate you all for coming on. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
And thanks everybody for listening.